Hi everyone, Armored Pants here, and I have another video for you in the Japanese line. This is the last one, the TD line, the Tier 10 Holy Samurai. As always, I have a complete guide, and it's going to be a cool video. We've got some beautiful ammo rack shots, a nice RAM, we've got some voodoo black magic shit shots coming up. But before that, I'd like to hand it over to somebody you may know for an important message. Over to you, Armored. Would like to ask for your indulgence for a couple of minutes, just 2 minutes of your time. And I'm going to use this rather androgynous looking superhero or person late for a wedding in Las Vegas to ask you to look at a couple of points. So firstly, there's a new concept in the Blitz gaming community that I want to run by you guys. Up until now, you know, I've never monetized my channel, no ads, no Patreon requests, nothing like that, which is all good for you, the viewers. But you know, it takes me up to 4 to 5 hours to make a tank review, and some of the more complex videos I make, like the advanced tutorials, take days. So, you know, I put in a lot of work, but I've never asked for anything, and nor am I asking for anything now for myself. But I do realise that on occasion I've asked you guys for money, right? Not for myself, of course, I would never do that. I don't ask you to give me anything directly, but I've asked you to give money to charities, for example, and the most recent one being a child poverty charity in South Africa. So while not for me, I realise I've asked you to dip into your pocket sometimes, and you guys have been great, and the response has always been good. However, I had an idea, and my wife will tell you that occasionally I do have ideas, you know, not very often, but occasionally I do. And I thought that maybe I could connect these two things, not monetizing the channel, but the charity drives and other things like that. And I thought maybe I could create a new concept, which I've called Get to Give, Give to Get. Or we could call it Our Pants 4G Network, which I think has even have a better ring, right? So if you like the channel, if you like the content, if you like me, or even if you fucking hate me, you can still get a chance to help me help others. So how does this work? Well, what I've done is I've actually set up Patreon, and I've set up PayPal, and the links are going to be on the banner, and I'm also going to put the links, the banner of the main homepage and channel, and the links are also going to be in the description of this video. And I'm going to ask you to donate something if you can, whatever you can, if you can. But here's the unique thing, this money's not for me. I'm not going to use any of it. This money's all going to go back into you guys, into the Blitz community and the wider community. So we're going to give away even more premium tanks. We've done a lot, we're going to give away even more. We're going to give away even more gold, like the one that we're doing right now. But we're also going to use the money to give away to charities, for example, COVID, the charity in South Africa, other things like that, and occasionally very special things. So for example, a couple of years ago, one of my subscribers was in hospital, seriously ill, and his phone died, a very old phone, so we actually bought him a new one to enable him to keep in touch with his family. And of course, I guess he played Blitz as well, why not? So here's the idea, if you can help, please do, on Patreon or PayPal. It doesn't cost much at all if you can afford it, less than the price of a cup of coffee every month, or if you live in Paris or London, not even half a cup of coffee. So that's the idea. I hope you like it, and if you can help, I'd be a great thanks. And that's all I have to say on the subject. So now back to the main video. Thanks very much, Armored. Very worthy cause, but thanks very much for handing back to the main video. Now, this tank has a 150mm gun. The last tank had 14.9 centimeters, so this tank is even sweeter. That gun is great. We're going to have a look at tech spec. To do that, we're going to use blitzhanger.com. We're going to start off looking at provisions, etc. Then we're going to have a look at some gameplay, the usual format in these reviews. And we're going to go through all the details, tell you everything you need to know to play this tank well. So, in terms of provisions, I'm going to run white rice, improved fuel, and on a duty, which is basically more rice. And that's going to max out your view range and your reload, which is always great to have with a TD. And this is a great TD. Now the gun is that 150mm gun, so just a 1mm more than the previous gun. It has a 14.5 G index, gun index, versus 14 for the previous tier, so therefore it's a slight increase. So and it has good gun handling. So if you like the gun in the last tank, you're going to love this one. I run gun rammer because it has great pen anyway, supercharged and refined gun. But calibrated shells also work, and we'll have a look at the pen numbers for both of those so that you can make up your own mind. So In terms of the pen numbers, if we look at those very quickly, so we've got AP, your Pramo is another AP, it's the more dense AP round, which is Japanese style APCR, and you've got HE, they're your round types. So we're going to look at the pen numbers, 310 millimeters of pen with AP. If you use gun rammer, if you use calibrated shells, it goes up to 326 millimeters, so very high pen numbers on this gun. And you know, it really is a good gun system. I don't think you're going to be disappointed with this gun system at all. If we use the Pramo, which is this higher density AP rounds, you get 380 millimeters of pen, or going up to 399 millimeters if you use calibrated shells. You get 85 millimeters using gun rammer and 94 millimeters with HE if you use calibrated shells. So the kind of decision is up to you whether or not you want to get the higher pen or have a better reload, because the reload is 10.1 seconds with gun rammer, it goes up to 10.9 seconds with calibrated shells, so you lose almost a second, 0.8 of a second. So it's up to you guys. I mean, I run gun rammer because, you know, I like to fire more often, but calibrated shells is a good option too. Now, you've less gun depression than the previous tank. You've only got 6 degrees of gun depression. You also have less elevation by 1 degree. You have 14 degrees of elevation with this tank versus 15 with the previous tank, so slightly poorer gun alignment. And that's a bit disappointing. You expect to have better stats when you go up to tier 10, right? But here's a better stat. It goes 50 kilometers per hour front, 20 in reverse, and that's a big step up from tier 9, where you had 37 kilometers per hour at top speed versus 15 in reverse. So that is a step up, exactly what we expect and hope for when we move up from tier 9 to tier 10. Decent power to weight ratio as well, which gives a good mobility, good maneuverability, and will take a lot of other tanks by surprise. They think because it's a turretless TD, they're going to get around it easily, going to be easy to circle at death. This has really good traverse, so it is a good brawler, and you're going to be able to hold your own, especially if you can back up and not let a faster tank get around behind you. You can hold your own in this tank. Camo numbers are super. A tank with a huge view range like 380 meters has to still get within 197 meters of you to spot you. 241 if you're moving, and 247 when you fire. So you blow 50 meters of concealment when you fire, be aware of that. And these figures, of course, if you run camo net, you should be running camo net if you're playing a TD, because you need to get those concealment numbers up as high as possible. Looking at the armor profile here, it has decent armor on the front. Lower plate is decent, mid plate is decent, and the front mounting turret has decent armor. You will get bounces in this tank. Obviously at the sides and back you are vulnerable, particularly back, vulnerable at the back. You need to be aware of that. But if you can remain front on in this tank, and if you can wiggle and jiggle and move and shake that butt, then you will get some bounces. Even from big guns, you'll get some bounces. You can also, by moving around, get some bounces off that gun mantlet, which is right in the center. So, you know, front on, wiggle and jiggle, you're going to get some bounces in this tank. And against lower caliber guns, you can even side scrape in it. If we look here, when you are up against tier 9s, you're going to get, it's much easier to get bounces. Up against tier 10s, it's harder, but nonetheless you can still get some bounces, and you're going to see some bounces when we look at the gameplay, even against tier 10 tanks. Now, in terms of the tactics for this tank, you can play this as a classic TD, right? So you sit back, adopt your support position, use those amazing concealment numbers, stay unspotted for almost the whole game, and just farm damage with that great reload, that great alpha, and that great penetration. But also its mobility index is also 4.3, so it's almost double its tier 9 equivalent. If you saw the review on that, you saw how well that tank gets around the map. This tank can shift. This tank can get around the map really well, and in the gameplay we're going to look at, you see a combination of classic TD play plus using the mobility to get around the map and influence the game. So bear those two things in mind. You have two options with this tank. I would recommend when you come to it first, while you're getting used to it, sit back, get used to the gun system, get used to the tank itself, get a feel for it, get a feel for how to get those bounces. Then when you're more confident, more skilled with it, you can definitely move forward with this tank. Go and support your meds, or as you can see in the gameplay we're going to look at, you can get around the map, capture bases, be very influential in the game, and do you know, lots of damage and lots of positive actions. But before that, let's have a look at some gunplay. I did say that this tank has a great gun system. I really liked it. I really enjoyed playing it. So let's have a look at some gunplay. The gun index, as I said, is 14.5 or 14.5k. If you want to, a tank it's often compared to is the FOC 155. Then it has a gun index of only 12.3, so it's 18% better gun handling, 18% better gun index than its FOC, and that's on a like-for-like basis. If you don't know what the gun index is it's basically a single calculation formula that allows you to compare gun systems, and we cover that off in one of the advanced tutorials, so if you want to have a look at that. But right now, let's have a look at this. Kaboom! Lovely ammo rack coming up here. Max roll, full hit point roll. Was it 1981 damage points in one shot? Beautiful stuff. And you know, this is just what you can do with this. I'm going to slow it down here so we can have a look at the gun dynamics in action. So I have auto aim on here, so I'm tracking. I thought he was moving forward, moving back, going to where I know approximately the ammo rack is, and RNG gods are kind. Full ammo rack, full hit points gone, and it's back to the garage after what, just a minute of gameplay for our Russian friend. So just a good example of how this tank can be so effective. But this tank is not just about the gun, it also has this armor, and you can do things like this, right? So if you look here, right, because I don't have a turret, I can't get a shot onto the red here. What I do is I just decide to use my armor, right? Just roll forward. Thou shalt not pass. No, and like if you look at if you go to the alpha roll I got there, and it's the same as a full round. And of course, armor ramming is the round that never ends, right? Never runs out. It's always available. And you can do that with this tank, particularly against lightly armed tank like the T92 there. Now we're going to have a look at some gameplay. It's a 6.6k net damage, so it's 5k of actual damage plus 1.6 of bounce damage. So again, we're going to show you the armor in action as well. You know, obviously you're not going to bounce all the time with this tank, but it is capable of it, right? So, and it, you know, yeah, any bounces you get in this are obviously a bonus because it does have vulnerable parts, but you know, it really helps when you can bounce some shots, and you're going to see some bounces coming up here, but you're also going to see the gun in action too, and the mobility. So as I promised, what we're going to do in this game is firstly adopt a traditional TD position. I'm asking my mates to move to see if they'll spot up. So I'm just going to use my concealment numbers here. I'm using soft camo as well. So if you have something with a 308, 310 view range, he's now going to have to get in about like 180 meters of me to spot me if I'm not firing or moving. So, you know, pretty much going to remain unspotted here until, you know, one of the Reds gets really into close proximity of me. Now, don't have a good start to this game. I actually fluffed a shot on this, but the miss you're going to see here in the FE is not the gun system's fault, it's my fault. I take my eye off the prize and I miss. And then I get a low alpha roll on them here, you know, taking them out here is well within my my alpha range, but I get a low roll and I leave him on a few hit points. And this actually caused a problem first because he keeps my teammate spotted up, and my teammate eventually dies. I don't really know what he's doing here. He just rolls out and just gets smashed. I don't know how he managed to do that, but now I've lost sight. But I make amends with this shot, and yeah, you saw that right. So that's some voodoo black magic shit there, right? How did I do that? Well, basically I just tracked him. I just counted out in my head where I thought he would be. Load up a HE round, because then they're not going to bounce, and I know I'm going to take him out, and there we go. So I think I made up for the poor shot earlier on with that one. Nice bit of anticipation. Now I get hit here by the Progreto because I was turning to face on to where I thought the TDs might be. He smashed one into me, but I was able to bounce one and put one into him. And now he's going to come at me, as I would do if I was him. And then you'll see here where the only 6 degrees of gun depression versus 8 in the previous tier 9 tank comes into play. It's difficult for me to get shots on him, so the gun alignment is not as good as the previous tank. And you can see here now I can't let him reload his full magazine, so I need to go after him. And again, the armor in play, bounce and kill. Again, you know, I think this is the brawling capability of this tank. It's being aware of its front on armor. So I know, especially when I'm coming down the hill here, I'm getting a nice speed boost coming down the hill from like gravity take. its course, push right into him, and then the ram damage brings him within my alpha roll on one shot, and I'm able to clear him off. Now what I'm going to do is reset camo, and I'm just going to wait, and then I'm going to go up over the hill, and hopefully I've reset camo. I'm not going to take a big round from somebody. And now it's kind of like the first part of that game was sort of traditional TD play, taking up a traditional supporting role at the back, trying to farm damage while your teammates spot. But things have changed now, so now I know I need to use the mobility of my tank to go and do some positive action, so I'm going to go cap C. I'm not entirely sure where all of the reds are, or rather I know where they are approximately, but I don't know if their guns are facing me, so I didn't want to roll straight towards my allies. But also I think this is going to be a close game, so I also thought it'd be beneficial to put pressure on the reds by capping the base. Now we've got 2 bases, they have no bases. And even though it's 2v2 now, we still have a significant advantage because they have to cap. So why is this significant? Well, it means that we know, myself and my ally, where they're going to go. They have to go towards a base. We know where the bases are, so we know where they're going to go. And this, now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to wait for my ally with the higher hit point pool to go up. He's heavily armored. And we know that they're going to be around, we know they're at A, and we know they're going to come towards B, because you'd have to get B or C, and now we can put them into a crossfire. So that's why the importance of capping the base. It's not only about getting points, it's also about making the enemy movements, the enemy actions more predictable. See, there's able to put a nice tracking shot into the Death Star, nice big alpha roll on him, able to put one into the grill, and now I'm rolling back, and there we get a nice bounce right off the gun mantle, I think. And this is what I said earlier, you know, by wiggling and jiggling, you know, you present those angles and you make your own look. And yes, of course I was lucky to bounce off the grill, but it kind of made it a bit easier to be lucky there. If you're wondering what I was doing here, I actually, and it was one of the things about Blitz, now you can see where the shell holes are. I aimed exactly at the previous shell hole, because I knew where it was, I could see it, to see if I could set him on fire again, because I knew I set him on fire the previous time. So now I know that that's a vulnerable part where his fuel tank is. Didn't work out, but you know, it's a nice little tip. If you've set something on fire before, or done some serious damage, and you can see the shell hole, just fire at it again. It's a nice little add-on from Wargaming, and a nice little tip. So there we go, first class mastery badge, almost 5k damage, 1.6k, over 1.6k of bounce damage. A good example of this tank in action, a good example of this tank's attributes, which are that great gun handling system, its mobility, its maneuverability, its ability to get around the map, and its ability to brawl, to use that armor and to get some bounces. So I think overall a good sort of summarized display of what's good about this tank. And that was a game I really enjoyed, I have to say. I think there was some great stuff in it, some nice tracking shots. That little bit of tracking black magic I did on the FE 4202 I think was particularly satisfying. It's always great when you pull off one of those shots. Overall I think a good display of everything which is good about this tank, and I think you guys will enjoy it, and particularly if you enjoyed the previous tank, you're going to enjoy this because it's even slightly better. So let's have a quick recap then on this excellent tank. Excellent TD in the Japanese line, and definitely well worth the grind up to tier 10. Firstly, this is a super tank destroyer. It's really great. It's not the best in its tier, but it's definitely worth the grind and definitely worthwhile. Good DPM, good rate of fire, and nice alpha rolls. Its max alpha roll is 700 with AP, which is really good. It's agile and mobile for a TD. You saw there, you can get around the map, you can capture bases, you can influence the game. You don't have to just sit in one spot. The 150mm gun is great. It's a very good gun system and a slight improvement on the one at tier 9, so if you enjoy that, you'll enjoy this even more. Muzzle velocity is 1105 meters per second, so it's a slight decrease versus the previous tank. It only has 6 degrees of gun depression versus 8 in the previous tank, so it's not as good gun line. We just saw that when I was trying to get shots onto the Progretto. Has low dispersion though, low max deviation, so therefore has better gun handling. Supercharger fine gun camo net are what I would use on this tank. You know, and they're things you should be using on TD. There's great traverse, surprisingly good brawler, I have to say, and you will take a lot of medium tanks by surprise. Gun index is 14.5, maneuverability, mobility index is 4.3. As I said, it's almost twice that of the previous tier 9, and overall it's an excellent TD, pleasure to play. I think you'll really enjoy it. Definitely one to get and one to enjoy, particularly if you're a TD player and enjoy that genre of tanks. So overall, it gives a big thumbs up from Armored Pants. On the Armored Pants 4G network, if you can afford to give anything, even €1, $1, whatever, on Patreon or PayPal, please do. Music was Sancien, Danse Macabre, and that indeed was a dance of death in that game, so I hope you enjoyed it. And I guess now all that remains for me to say is, pants off.